Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank you for joining us for our financial aid webinar today. I have a special guest, our new loan officer. This is Lucette Brett, and she will be able to help answer questions about loans. But today, she's really just going to sit here and observe our process and what we're doing. So what we wanted to talk about today is we're in a unique situation right now with being in 2 aid years at the same time. So what I mean by that is many of you are wanting to take summer classes. And for the summer classes, you had to have completed a FAFSA application for the 2021 school year. If you did not do that one and you completed a 21-22 application instead, then you will not have financial aid availability until fall of the 21 school year coming up. If you want to go back and you've already registered and paid for classes for summer and you'd like to do your FAFSA for the 2021 school year, you can still do that. You have time to do that, and you need to do so quickly. So for financial aid, you do the FAFSA application every year, and they open that application in October. So you can actually complete it almost a little bit over a year in advance, and you want to do so as soon as possible so that each year in August, when the FAFSA process starts for the new year, you'll already have a completed file. What many students don't realize, they do the FAFSA application and they think they've completed it because you'll actually get a congratulations email from the Department of Education. It tells you you've completed the FAFSA, but they also tell you you must contact your institution. That's CTC, Financial Aid Department specifically. So what happens is you do your FAFSA application, it gets processed by Department of Ed. As long as you've been admitted to CTC, they'll send us your application and we will receive that and send you an automated email the same day we receive it, letting you know that one of two things have happened. Your file was selected for verification or it was not. If it's not selected for verification, then you get an award notice letting you know what you qualify for and an option to complete a loan process, which is when you would talk to Lucette Brett to try and find out if you want to borrow a loan. We try to talk you out of it if we can. Not that she doesn't have job security, but we do want to make sure that you're only borrowing aid if you absolutely need to for financial aid, because you're going to move on hopefully to a 4-year school and you're going to need that loan just to help you pay your tuition. 9 times out of 10 at CTC, unless you're an out-of-state resident or you're in a very expensive program like the flight school, you won't need a student loan at all. So we do try our best to talk you out of that process. But right now I want to kind of cover summer. Summer is a unique term, and a lot of students come from other schools and take classes at CTC just for the summer. In those cases, you are usually considered a transient student and not eligible for financial aid. Because the financial aid is awarded to your primary school, that would be the school that you attended for fall and spring. So often you will talk to us and we'll tell you you're not eligible to use Pell Grant here because you've already used it at another school, and you can do what's called a consortium agreement if that other school will participate. Excuse me. If the other school will participate with a consortium agreement, then that means you would take your classes with CTC, turn the hours in to your primary school, and they would award aid based on your FAFSA with them. So the other interesting part about summer is if you were full-time for fall and spring, for instance, you took 12 credit hours in the fall or more, 12 credit hours in the spring or more, then typically you are out of financial aid. However, the Department of Ed in the last few years implemented what they call year-round Pell. For year-round Pell, it requires that you be in a minimum of 6 credit hours to receive any of that additional aid. One of the big questions we get for summer is, why is the award so much smaller than it is in fall and spring? Well, the reason is because summer typically is no longer than 10 weeks versus a standard term, which is 16 weeks long. So you only receive 10 weeks worth of financial aid when you're a summer student, which is a smaller amount than you typically would get, for instance, for one class. So it's very important to know how much your classes are, and you can look at that on Student Self-Serve through WebAdvisor. And you can find out what your cost is and then compare that to how much financial aid you were awarded. So if you look at a summer award and take the total amount and you divide that by 4, that'll give you a very good estimate of what you're going to receive for one single class. To receive a full summer award, you would have to be in 12 credit hours, just like fall and spring. But if you have enough aid eligibility, we will give you aid for even one class. If you're unsure, then you can certainly contact us in financial aid and let us know you're trying to determine exactly how much aid you have. So what happens a lot of times with summer is it rolls around and you register for one class, for instance, and this creates a lot of havoc for students. You only register for one class, for instance, in the first summer term, but then you register for your second class in the second summer session. So what will happen on your financial aid, and this includes your loan as well, none of your aid for that second class is going to be released at all until 10 days prior to the start of that class. So if you're a Pell recipient and you have 3 credit hours of aid eligibility, we will go ahead and transmit for those 3 hours. However, the business office is going to charge you for 6 credit hours because you've already registered for those classes. So what happens, and this is a complaint we receive a lot, is you don't often have enough money to purchase your books. So keep in mind, if you're a loan-only student, none of your loan is going to release until you're in 6 hours at the same time. So your first class may start in June and your second class doesn't start until July. That means no loan is going to release until July. So you would essentially and could be dropped by the business office for non-payment for that first class because they're not expecting any aid until July. So when you have an issue, you're not sure who to contact, you need to find out first off what your question is. Is it financial aid that's going to transmit? Then you certainly contact financial aid. However, if it is, what are my charges and how much difference may I owe that I have to pay now to keep from being dropped, you need to contact the business office for that. So they will be able to tell you exactly what your charges are if you're not able to see that for yourself. So let's say you are a student and you're looking at Student Self-Serve and your charges, I'm just going to make up some numbers for an example. Let's say your charges are $500. And I only released 325 for your Pell Grant. You're going to need to pay the difference in order to not be dropped from that class. So even though financial aid may release a portion, if it's not enough to cover the full cost of your class, the business office will still drop you for non-payment because you owe a portion. So knowing what your costs are and knowing what your financial aid is very, very important, and it will help you to keep from being dropped for classes. One of the other issues that we say to students quite often when they call in is, I have financial aid. It's going to pay for all my classes, and I know I have enough aid. So why can't I get my books right now? So we talked a little bit about that already, but the book charges, when you go over to the bookstore and you charge against your financial aid, then you have to know how much of your aid is being applied to tuition and how much of your aid is left that you can use at the bookstore. So if you have a class and it's $500 and you actually signed up for 2 classes, and you have one starting now, one starting later, then your financial aid is only going to release $500 now, and those $500 will be applied to both classes. So you'll call us and tell us, I don't have enough money for my first book. What do I do? Oftentimes what we do, and we don't like to have to do this, is we'll tell you to drop that second class, purchase your book with the money that we've transmitted for the first class, and then register for that second class again. Probably a better idea is to register for the first classes that you're going to take, wait for your funds to transmit, go to the bookstore and purchase your books if you have enough aid left, and then go back and add that class that you want. The problem with telling a student to drop a class in order to use their financial aid now for the first class is you may not always be able to add that second class back. It may be gone, especially if you're looking at math and science classes that are hard to get into. So if you struggle with a class that you're trying to get into, don't drop it unless you're pretty sure you're going to be able to get back into that class. So those were some of the basic ideas of financial aid and what happens now. For the new year, financial aid starts 21-22, and we have been awarding for that already since February. And if you are trying to be a student starting in the fall term, that aid will fall under the 21-22 school year. So Lucette has been with us for about 6 months now and has been processing aid files. And just out of curiosity, Lucette, do you have some common questions that students ask you about financial aid that you think we could address here?
Yes, they want to know if they can get their funds before the classes start. And so that's where the 10 days prior comes in, especially if you have a Pell Award, you're just going to get it 10 days before the class starts. So you do have some time to get your books and prepare for that class.
Right, and that's a good point. And keep in mind when she says you're going to get your aid 10 days prior, that aid is transmitted to the business office. It is not transmitted to your bank account. So we tell financial aid students sign up for direct deposit. That is handled through the business office, and they do the financial aid direct deposits through their system under the finance section. So when you do that, and especially with the military population, transient population that we have here at CTC, that'll prevent your balance checks that you do receive from being returned or uncashed or undeliverable when you've moved, changed addresses, or PCS to another location, for instance. So getting your balances, that doesn't mean you're getting it sent to you yet. So how that works for financial aid is we transmit funds eligible 10 days prior to the start of each class, and we do that to the business office student account. So even though you may not realize it, your funds are held in an account for you under your student ID number with the business office. They use those funds to pay any charges and to allow you to go to the CTC bookstore, use your student ID number, and charge against any balance that you have. Then approximately 30 days after classes start, they will start sending those balances, and the balance comes from any aid that you have not used for tuition or books. So another type of aid, and we're kind of in the midst of awarding this right now, is the CARES grant funding. We have CARES grant that we awarded. Some of you that were here last spring, this last summer, were receiving CARES grant. Excuse me just a moment. Thank you. The CARES grant was money that the Department of Education sent to all institutions across the country, and it is for emergency grant relief, debt relief, to students who attended CTC. So the first one that we actually gave out was called CARES grant, and it was awarded, and all of it has been expensed for the year. However, starting just in the last few weeks, we have put an application on the e-forms section of the CTC website, And it is an application for Carissa, and that's CRRSAA grant. We have been awarding that, and that is opened up to a little bit different population than the first one was. The CARES grant could not be used for students who were all online. What they did was just award students who were in the classroom and maybe were displaced because of COVID. What they did under Carissa now is open it to any student who was enrolled as of March of last year and is currently enrolled now for either spring or summer. And we are awarding up to $500 right now on that grant, and we will do so until that grant is expensed. So if you have not already applied for the Carissa, CRRSA e-form, go to the e-form section and complete that application. And all the Department of Ed asks is that you have explained on the application how you were affected or impacted by Carissa. So they will go in and the application process goes through. Once the aid is awarded, it'll come to me for the final award. Once you see it on your Eagle self-serve, you'll see it as a CRRSA award for $500. I award this continuously throughout the week. However, the business office only cuts balances for those funds on Wednesday of each week. So if you see it now and you haven't received it, you should be getting it already this Wednesday. So those funds per Department of Education are not available to be used for tuition or charges. They are to be mailed directly to the student. However, you have the right as a student to contact the business office and let them know that maybe you need that $500 applied to tuition, and they will ask you for an email, perhaps giving them permission to use that. And then in that case, we can do so. So I've had that question a lot in the last few weeks is, can it be applied? How come it was awarded for spring and not summer, since I'm in summer right now? Well, the way we awarded was if you were already in spring courses, we put the money in the spring term, but it will still be sent to you this summer. Or if you want it used for summer costs, like I said, you can contact the business office and let them know that you want to use that money to pay for the classes. So the other thing one thing I forgot, and I just realized, is under the year-round Pell that we were just talking about, if you were a full-time student, 12 and 12, you do have to be in the 6 hours to have the classes paid for. But one thing I didn't mention is if you transferred in from another school, for instance, we didn't award you here at CTC at all for fall or spring. You may have come in and only been awarded Pell Grant just for the summer. In that case, if you are only taking 1 3-hour class, you will not receive any of your year-round Pell from CTC if you were full-time at your other institution as well. So that's created a little bit of confusion as well as to why some students who did register right now haven't received any of their aid. So keep in mind the 6-hour rule to receive the year-round Pell. However, if you were a student with CTC in fall and spring, or another school in fall and spring, and you were not full-time in either fall or spring or both, then you could still receive a portion even for 1 3-hour class. So it depends on whether you're actually using leftover Pell for summer because you were not full-time fall and spring, or if you are full-time fall and spring, if you're getting what's called year-round Pell. The money amount is the same, it looks the same, it just releases differently. So please let us know if you do have any questions about how your summer aid is being used or released. So Lucette, do you have any other questions that students normally bring in or
There's a
ask you?
couple. Some students think that they automatically get the summer loan. That's not the case. They do have to go on to eForms and type in summer loan, the application will pop up. Make sure to log in, of course, with your student ID number so that you have full access to the forms. And your form will be evaluated in 5 business days. Another issue that students seem to forget is once you're awarded, there are limits to loans each year and as a whole, an entire loan limit amount. And so it's not infinite. So you want to use your funds wisely. But if you are awarded for fall and spring, your full awards or your subsidized and unsubsidized loans, you are not eligible for any more loan awards for this summer. Another frequently asked question that sometimes we get is, well, there's a negative balance in my account. And I explained that's a good thing. That means we owe you the money, but it's a refund issue and that they would need to contact the business office.
Good point. So again, just the summer loans, just like Summer Pell, are a little bit differently. When we award in future terms, you may have something that you see on your award notice, for instance, we'll package. Well, that means that we automatically award based on your FAFSA and the file information and your eligibility. And we put that out to you as an offer notice. And many of you will receive the offer notice and see different statuses on them. So for Pell Grant and scholarship aid or grant aid, sometimes you'll see a different status. For Pell Grant, we automatically accept that Pell Grant for you. By you completing a FAFSA, you're telling us you want to go to CTC and you want to use financial aid at CTC. Since the Pell Grant is free money, we will package that and accept it for you. You do not have to accept your Pell Grant. Keep in mind, if you decide not to go to CTC and you want to transfer to a 4-year school, you have to tell us to deny that aid, or else your next school may not be able to award it to you at all. So pay attention on your award notice exactly what your statuses are. An A means the aid has been accepted. A P, such as the case of a student loan, we never accept a student loan on a student's behalf. The student must accept the loan themselves. So you would go into student self-serve and you would actually take an action of completing a master promissory note and an entrance counseling. And at that point, you can then accept your student loan. Now, what if you see an award out there with an E status? An E means estimated. So some of our grant aid we receive from the state of Texas. So what our person, Brandy Sappenfield, who awards the state grants, will do is she will predetermine who is eligible. But we can't give you that money until we receive it from the state. So when she predetermines that you're possibly going to receive this award, she will put the award out there with an estimated status in the form of TEOG. You may have to fill out a form, and once she gets the form, it completes that process and she can then change it to an A. If you have not completed requirements to receive those awards, then those awards will stay in an E or eventually be denied. So understanding what you're looking at on your award notice is really important as well. So any other questions you want to talk about? I don't have anything current right now. I don't have any other issues I can think of. And Bruce, I don't know if we have any questions coming in for the chat that we could start to talk about.
I have one question that came through. The student noticed on the website, it says your financial aid file should be completed and offer acknowledged by June 1st for the fall semester. If they haven't done this, are they out of luck? Is it too late for them, or what's the next step for those students?
Okay, it's not too late. What the deadline means is that if you want to start classes on time in August, you need to make sure that you get your FAFSA application completed on time, which is the June deadline. That gives us time to process in case there's verification questions, issues that you are unable to resolve quickly. It gives you time to make sure everything is done and received and awarded before classes start. So we are an open enrollment school. and we process your aid files year round. So we will continue to process aid, but if your aid file is not accepted and approved prior to you registering for classes, then you have to pay for those classes yourself out of pocket, and that way you won't be dropped for non-payment. And then once your aid file is completed, if eligible, and based on that eligibility, we will go back and award aid. So at that point, all that aid may come to you as a refund. And those are usually processed a little quicker than 30 days after classes start.
Oh, and another positive incentive to get that done as soon as possible is that the U.S. Department of Education will increase the loan rates in October. So
Correct.
you want to get that taken care of well before October 1st, absolutely.
Correct. Any other questions in the chat that we need to address?
That was the only question I have in the chat. Lee, do you have any other questions on Facebook from your end? Lee's a little tied up. Hang on one second, folks.
Okay.
She's checking right now to see if we have
All
any
right.
questions. So. Nothing, Lee? She's scanning back.
There's a few here. Let me find the first one.
Okay.
Thank you.
One person is having a hard time getting a hold of anybody.
All right. Give her my phone number.
Okay, I put the financial aid office and the business office phone numbers out there, but I will go ahead and type
Yes.
in your email and your phone number if that's all right, Pearl.
Yes, that's great. Just
Okay.
anytime you're having trouble, you can always email me directly. And again, I'm the director of the financial aid department, and I will get either an answer to you or get you to the right person.
Okay, and another question the same individual has is, after being awarded the CRRSA, how long does it take to be processed?
If you see the award on your student's self-serve page already, it is awarded every Wednesday. So if you had it last week, was the first week we awarded that, it should have been already issued on Wednesday of last week. If you just saw it since last Wednesday, it will go out this Wednesday.
They're also asking, is it too late to file their FAFSA for fall?
No, it's not too late. Just do it quickly. And our school code to have it sent to CTC, just so you know, is 004003. So you'll want to include that on the FAFSA, and you need to make sure that you've already been admitted to CTC so that your social is on the system.
And that's all the questions thus far.
Great, thanks, Lee. I don't have any other questions here on this end either. So in wrapping up, thank you, Pearl. Thank you, Lucette. One last ditch of advice for students as they prepare either for summer 2 or going into the fall semester.
Get your FAFSA done early and make sure you contact financial aid to make sure your aid file is complete. It is not complete just by having completed the FAFSA with Department of Ed. You always have to receive and accept an award notice from Central Texas College, just so that you have you'll know exactly what aid you've qualified for.
Great, we appreciate that. So we've got all the contact information there in the chat. The financial aid general email is out there. The financial aid office phone number is out there. The business office phone number is out there. And Pearl, we put your, with a typo, misspelled your name, sorry, your phone number there, but your email is correct. So pearl.creviston@ctcd.edu is correct. We've also put the school code for FAFSA out there for CTC. So students can jot that information down and contact you if needed. So again, thank you, Pearl. Thank you, Lucette. We appreciate your time. And we will do this again next month, folks, the second Tuesday of July at 10 a.m. We will be live on Facebook again. So if other questions come up as you enter in the financial aid process and the application process, or have other questions that come up during your summer semester, feel free to join us then. 1, and we'll get answers to your questions second Tuesday of July at 10 a.m. So again, thank you, Pearl. Thank you, Lucette. We certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you, everybody.
And if you guys will hang on.